What's up, everybody? I was so hesitant to say what's up, everybody, because of the timer and stuff. But I'm Ryan O'Hara. Welcome to Take Me Off Your List. It's been a little while since I've done an episode because I've just been super busy with stuff at Pitchfire. I needed to get someone to spice things up and do things on the sales side today. And I don't know if anyone's seen this on LinkedIn, but on my feed, I've been noticing someone's been posting these crazy, awesome sales comic book stories. Like they're like these graphic sales stories. And I was like, you know what? I should get that guy in my podcast. And it just so happens that we're friends too outside of this. But what's up, Tom Stearns?
What's up, Ryan O'Hara?
It's
So fun to talk to you, dude.
what a delight. What a delight. Tom comes off of you just came back from Ireland, right? Didn't you just go do a trip in Ireland?
I did. Yeah, it was a blast.
That's so cool. I need to go there because I like big green things. And apparently there's a lot of big green things there.
There's a lot of big green things there. Yes.
Did you shoot any videos for work or anything there?
No, nothing. I didn't even bring my laptop.
Oh, that's amazing. I probably would have brought stuff and shot stuff just because it's cool looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's cool looking. Yeah, no, good point. But no, I wanted to shut down completely for 10 days. And I did. It was refreshing.
I feel like you're always going on like cool places when you do your annual vacation, but people that don't know Tom does sales training and consulting and helps a ton of businesses, some big companies too. I don't know what you're allowed to say or not, but Tom, tell the people what you do.
Yeah. So my main line of work is that I help struggling and scaling go-to-market teams. So I love the problem solve. So I love to look at a company that, 10, 50 million trying to get it to 100, and something either isn't right or they got to get much bigger than they're used to, and tackling that problem primarily, it's go to market, but primarily on the sales side. But with 10 years of doing this, I do a boatload of sales training too. Lenovo is my biggest, longest running client, the big one you mentioned there.
Yep.
And that I would say is more training than consulting. Most of my other clients are like SaaS, companies that need a rocket ship their sales team.
I want to like read an ad for Lenovo now. Like, hey everyone, I don't know about you, but when I need to use a computer and I don't, I'm not going to do it. People are like skipping 15 seconds ahead. They're like, what? Why are there ads on this thing? So you've been working with Lenovo for a long time. What are they primarily selling there? Like because everyone probably knows that, like I know them as like they spun off ThinkPad basically to be a Lenovo product, right?
Yeah, they bought IBM years ago, and that became their flagship laptop. So yeah, laptops, desktops, gaming computers, servers, the whole line of computer technology.
And so like the cool part about working with them though is like you're kind of selling out of like what I call like a fake economy. Like you're actually selling to like real businesses and doing stuff where like you're not just selling to another company that's going to also buy back their tech. You know what I mean? And that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're a great company to work for. I mean, they are like just great people. God, I've met hundreds of people. I actually did a LinkedIn sales nav search on all the people that I'm connected with. So either trained or consulted with that work elsewhere now. And it was over 100 people in that list alone. So yeah, they've been a great collaborator and client forever. Yeah, 7, 8 years now. I've kind of lost track.
Yeah, it's all right. So let's talk a little bit today about what are some of the things that you see with the clients that you work with. Let's call it sales mistakes. Let's go through some sales mistakes. A company comes to you and says, Tom, we can't get things working. We're trying to get scale and we're not growing. What's our problem? What do you usually see? Are there any patterns? Like let's decode it. Let's go through items of this.
Yeah, every company is different, but there are definitely patterns. So one thing I see a lot of is an unrefined ICP, unrefined ideal customer profile.
Yeah, not insane clown policy for people at home wondering if that's what Tom is talking about.
Yes, right. Yes, they tend to be like selling to everybody, or their team is just pointed in any direction they want to go. So that can lead to a lot of problems. Like who's our tribe really? And why that's more important than ever is because there's so much noise. So you really, really have to be an expert to your buyer. So you got to know who's my tribe, who's my buyer, what's my ecosystem to play in. So that it can be with smaller companies, I would say.
So if
Uh,
a company comes to you, they're at 20 million. They're like, "Hey, we're not growing," and you say, "Hey, who's your ICP?" What's the answer to that question that's correct? Should they be giving you personas, or is it something else?
um, it's Well, it's a combination of personas. It's really like, target accounts, with a clear definition. And, it starts with maybe it's a vertical or there's some kind of firmographic data, but a real good ICP has a lot of like psychographics, meaning that our solution is maybe a new solution in the space, and it's a leading edge. Like we're doing something for diversity, equity, inclusion that is really forward thinking. And your ICP definition might include that they've got a robust DEI team that always wants to be brand forward or climate forward, right? So you're looking for those attributes that help you identify like-minded, because hey, yeah, we could sell to another bank, right? But that particular bank, or those banks that we talk to don't actually care about that, right? They don't even have a DEI team. So you're looking for all those attributes, and then your team, I think, need to related to your persona, really needs to understand that space as deeply as possible. It can't be surface level. We gotta go in. And one of the I talked a lot about this with a couple of folks over the last 6 months, but when you onboard people, a great approach is to your first week or two of training, you focus entirely on who you're selling to, their problems, their personas. You don't even train them on your product, your company values, like nothing, right?
Yeah.
100% focus on your buyer and your buyer. So that sets an example that we're always going to focus on our buyers' problems and first, and understand those deeply before we ever think about whether we can solve that problem or how we solve it. So,
So
sorry.
selling on the problem is key. I actually think that's great feedback. Whenever we did like rate my pitches and stuff, I always tell people like no one wants to read about your features and stuff. They want to hear about like, hey, what problem do you want to uncover and tell me about? And ask them if it's something they want to solve. You're looking for pain, right?
Yeah, I mean it's 100%. I think I've been coining this term lately called sales EQ. Your sales emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
and I think it's that as sellers, our focus needs to be on our customer 100%. Do we understand their problems? Do they have problems, right? Are there impacts to those problems? And we start there. And if they have a problem that we can't solve, right, we're not maybe the right fit, then that's fine. We direct them to somebody that can, or we walk away. Like it's never about us first. It's always about, do I understand their problem? And to do that is good old fashioned, like asking probing questions and listening and understanding the business acumen first. Sorry, you got me going, Ryan. But yeah,
No, that's
that
that's that's correct. Um, okay, let's take it next level. So we're talking about business acumen. We're talking about these companies that struggle to grow. How do you teach that? How do you say, "Hey, you right there, kid that's 25 years old and has never done this before, learn business." Like, what do you do?
Yeah, right. That's really that's such an amazing point, right? Is how do you take someone that's brand new to everything?
Yeah,
Um,
you just end the
so
podcast. You're like, "Yeah, that's a great point. Bye."
yeah, thanks, Ryan. Okay, that
Yeah,
was. I'll
yeah.
talk to you later. Yeah, that was
Thanks, everyone. Yeah. So, what do you do? Like, what? So, a company goes to you. You're like, "Hey, you got to learn business acumen. What are you supposed to do?"
Well, it goes back to sort of the holistic philosophy, right? So if you onboard them, and you spend the first week or two immersing them in their buyer and that industry. And again, this goes back to why you have to have a clear ICP and that you want to specialize your team is that, hey, you want to give that salesperson, whether it's a BDR, SDR, AE, you want to give them a tribe, you want to isolate. So say we sell to 6 different verticals, right? They should be learning one, and they should be learning as much about that buyer's persona and their company attributes and industries, trade that they're involved in, trade shows. Like, you want to immerse them in that first. So that's setting the precedent. And you want to teach them enough to do their job initially, right? So SDRs, right? SDRs they shouldn't be running meetings, right? They should be booking meetings. So how do you teach them enough to do some outreach that is personalized? And how do you get them to talk enough on a cold call to book a meeting? And they do that for a while, and that teaches them, without getting into trouble, right? I know a lot of heads of sales are like, hey, I want my SDRs to be able to qualify an opportunity before it ever gets to sales. I'm like, there's a reality there that, well, you can, but it's going to take them 18 months, and they're going to burn a lot of your TAM, right? They're going to run early meetings themselves, and they're going to make fools of themselves. So I still like the SDR function, even though there's a lot of talk that it's getting harder and it's dead. But I like it because I think you can isolate a skill set and take a young person and spend a lot of time, developing. But it comes back to, where are you pointing them, and how little, do they have to learn, right? So that's how I teach it, is that we got to specialize, and we got to specialize our education into like bits and pieces. And then they work their way up. By the time they're an AE at 18 months, 2 years or whatever, now they know that space. Leave them in one vertical. They'll be an AE in that vertical. So that's why when I talk about scale, it's like, those are some of the tactics to build an organization that can scale and do a good job scaling.
So let's talk. We talked about problems. Now let's loop it in for the full philosophy here. It actually makes sense why the best reps are usually people that worked in. So let's say it's an account executive you're hiring, right?
Yeah.
If they've sold that pain before, even if it's the different solution and a different way of solving that pain, that's probably why they usually work out pretty well in their new job, right?
Yeah, that's like maybe the kind of industry experience. However, I have seen some data from some clients that has proven that the SDRs that came up in the company that got promoted to AEs outperformed the AEs that were brought in with industry experience. So I don't know that that's, I have all the data on that, but I think it can work both ways, right? If you want a long-term plan, over time, you're going to build a better sales engine internally versus buying a bunch of AEs that have come from the industry, because you're teaching them what they need to know for yours. That said, short term, yes, early stage, depending on the stage, you got someone that understands the buyer already. Yeah, you're gonna get ahead faster.
It makes me think of when I was at Dine, we hired a lot of people that came from printer sales, and we were selling managed DNS. But one of the reasons that the printer sales people were so good at selling, they were so good, dude. Like, I'd hand a deal to them, and I know that it was going to close because it got handed to them. Like, shout out Bobby Condon, Tom Denniston. I'm giving you guys some shout outs here. They were so good. And one of the reasons they were really great is because the probing questions for managed DNS were actually very similar to printing. Like questions like, hey, how often do you print? It turns into, hey, how much do you change your TNS every day? Traffic, how much, if you had to guess, how many documents do you print a year? Hey, how many people visit your website every year? It's just like transposing some of the stuff over to manage DNS, and it worked really well. So it kind of makes sense that like you could come in like that, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, very good.
So company comes in, they don't have an ICP. What are some other mistakes that you see companies have? So like that could be one of them. But like if you're like wearing your lab coat, you got your stethoscope. Is that what doctors wear? that like check your heart? Is that what it's called?
I think so. Yeah,
Like,
stethoscope.
you got your like little doctor get up on and you're like, "Oh, let me diagnose what's happening with your sales team here." What are some other things that happen? Like, let's do another one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's leadership or management, right? It's
Oh, I
like,
love it. Take the shot.
yeah. I mean, everything is leadership, right? I mean, it's all top down. So, it's uh, I might help develop skills, right? They might be like, hey, we need to coach and train the SDR team. It's like, we can do that, but if we don't have a manager that understands it, can lead that charge, then that's basically a short-term skills injection, right? Let's go back to the doctor now. Let's give them some short-term skills on how to make a better cold call. It's got to be holistic. So the manager is everything. The director, the VP, everything is driven from the top. So yes, sometimes it's just not the right fit or the right person leading that team.
How
Um,
do you Tom, how when as a consultant, how do you who hires you to have that like what if it's the person that's not the right fit that hired you? What do you do? Are you like,
um,
"Hey, bad news."
well, you know what's interesting, right? Because I'm very empathetic, and everyone's my client in that company, and often I might be working with somebody that is not the right fit. They might recognize it's not the right fit, right? So trying to help self assess and be involved with all the players. Sometimes it's a self realization that, hey, I was a top performer. Now I'm managing a team and I don't really like managing people, anyways, kind of thing. And so trying to find ways that aren't just like, oh, we need to move all those people out. Sometimes it's that situation, but more often than not, those people just need some coaching themselves or they need some direction. So I guess what I look for if there's a leader, if there's a manager, is how coachable they are.
Yeah.
Um, and I try to slow deals down. Now, if I'm going to work with a company and I know that the CEO is hiring me, but I need to work with, the leadership in that team, is I'll be like, well, let me meet with all those people first. They need to trust me that I'm there and that I'm not one of the Bobs in Office Space, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My wife's like, are you one of the Bobs? I'm like, no, I'm not a Bob. You know, I'm there to
What
help.
is it exactly you do here? That's your probing question for them?
Yes, I sit down, I sit in a little office. What is it exactly you do here?
It says here that your name's Michael Bolton. I have his whole catalog. So you gotta make sure you're not a Bob there and you try and help them. On the leadership front, is it kind of getting with the program of the stuff that you're trying to institute for that org? Or is it more like they're just not like what makes a leader what's a struggling leader look like? That's a good question.
What's a struggling leader look like?
What colors the rash? Going back to the doctor allegory, or like, like what are the symptoms of a struggling leader?
Yeah, it's a lot of it's interpersonal skills. It's having a vision, but how to lead the people. And some of it gets down to strategic, but also the tactical. Like there are some leaders that are like, hey, we need to have this SDR team, but they have no idea how to do any of it. So it's not that they need to know how to do that stuff, but a struggling leader is like they're um, they come in a lot of different flavors, Ryan, and
Yeah.
so it's not an easy answer. Some are just inexperienced, have been promoted into a role. Some have come from the outside and they're just maybe the wrong fit. Other people just need development. I mean, one of the most exciting things I've seen a lot is I've been brought in with teams where the CEO or the VP of sales is running the sales team, and they're looking at an AE to promote into like a director role. And I personally experienced working with those AEs, becoming directors, now becoming VPs, like to see that progression and to help that person become successful. Super rewarding, which is why I want to meet those people ahead of time. Because if there's like a director of sales that's struggling and the team is hurting, but they want to get better and they're capable, then right, I'll not to be arrogant here, but I'll get them there much faster than if they had to figure it out on their own. But if they don't want any help, then
You can't do anything to help them. You
I
gotta
can't
like,
do anything to help them, and and it's just becomes futile and not the kind of client I want, which is why I try to interview more people now because I only need to work with companies that I love to work with. I'm fortunate that way, and that's my North Star. I'm not going to work for a company that I don't need the money. I'm not. I mean, I need the money, but I don't need the money enough to ever take a client that's going to be a difficult gig.
what do you think of companies? So like one of the popular topics that we probably both see on LinkedIn a lot is like people are like, hey, just because you were a good rep doesn't mean you're a good manager. And just because you're a good manager doesn't mean you're a good director, and good directors might not be good VPs. Like, what are the things that you see that like you're like, oh, this person's actually pretty sharp and knows what they're doing?
Yeah, I love that question, by the way, because I really believe that is that um, there's ways to kind of test leadership abilities for younger people, right? So going into a middle management position, even director position, is absolutely the best closer, the best meeting booker, right? They're not necessarily the best managers. Everybody knows that. So one of the things I recommend to reps like that are thinking of a leadership track is to have them mentor, coach, help their peers. And then I have them do that for a while. And I say, does that bring you joy?
Yeah. Oh,
And
so like just I don't want to derail you. Just to clarify this, let's say I'm an SDR, and you're like, hey, I want to be an SDR manager. If you help your teammates and it makes you happy, that's a good sign that you might like being a manager. Is that kind of what you're saying?
that's exactly what I'm saying,
Okay.
right?
Okay. Sorry.
You
Yep. Keep
get
going. Sorry.
joy from seeing others do better because we know in management, right, especially in sales, you're not necessarily going to make more money than the top performer. You're probably going to make less.
Yeah.
And it comes with more people to manage. So it's a different skill set. Uh, and often the top performer is not the best manager. There's often someone in the middle.
Yeah.
And I put myself in this category. I'm a better coach, a better advisor than I am an individual contributor, no question. I love when teams get better. I look at it holistically. I love to like build a system where individual skills are played to, right? Not every SDR is the best cold caller, but maybe they record beautiful videos and write poems to, and they connect on LinkedIn with like innovative ways, right? And that person is a disaster on the phone. So it's like you play to people's strengths. Same in sales, closing. It's like we lean into people's strengths, and so I love that. That doesn't make me a great top individual contributor.
I'll never forget something. I once did a podcast recording on an old podcast like years ago, and I interviewed someone, and they were telling me that the company they work for would only hire one type of personality for their sales team so that they could streamline their training.
Mm.
So like every rep they hired had to be like something on the Myers-Briggs. They had to be really good at cold calling. They didn't care if they were that great at cold email. Like there are like certain check boxes, and the second that they interview someone and they see like, oh, they need to work on this or they need to work on that, they would just not hire them. And the company is like a company that everybody knows. Like it's a pretty popular company. I don't want to say it because like it
Yeah.
was before we were recording that they said it, but like they basically were doing the cookie cutter thing. And I'm like, how do you hire like that and not feel like you just have cyborgs working on your sales team? Like, don't
Yeah.
you want different personalities and characters, and you want to get people that it's like not about development, it's more about churning and burning, you know?
Yeah, and I wonder what the culture, like I think culture fit is the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
You got to know your own culture, but then you hire around that. And also diversity. We all know diversity is good, right? And I've seen a couple of companies that have actively tried to become much more diverse and have succeeded. Like they've done all the things that you see Lori Richardson and Lauren Bailey like extol, like in building these systems. And now there's lots of women, there's lots of different like people from different backgrounds, and you get different points of view, you get different approaches, and like people are succeeding in different ways, and they're testing new ways because they come from a different background. like you have to, I think Steve Richards said, or somebody recently was saying like, it's always change. Steve Richards said that you always have to be changing. So you always have to be testing. So that cookie cutter thing is going to run into a wall, right? It's like
Yeah, yeah.
you need the creative, I believe, high activity and cold calling and all those activities are essential, but it's more about the discipline of being active. There needs to be immense creativity and testing within that structure if you're going to evolve with how selling evolves.
Yeah, I kind of agree. The other I like you know what I keep thinking about? When I was a BDR back in the early days, we had hired some guy. I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he wants his story out there, but we had hired some guy who was he lived in Puerto Rico and was a caddy for a golf club there that had all these executives there. And he wanted to get out of Puerto Rico and move to, the United States somewhere and like go to college and all this stuff. So every person that he met that he caddied for at this golf resort, he would cold called and cold emailed and said, "Hey, I want to come to the United States. Will you would you help sponsor me or figure some stuff out?" And one of the people eventually that helped him was the CEO of monster.com. He ended up like taking him under his wing, helping like this guy was super smart, excelled, very likable, great guy. And like he came to our team and just like taught me how to sell to Latin America, like in a way that I'd never, like people are really different culturally there than they are like
Mm.
in the Northeast in the West Coast where I was selling. And like they work differently. The pace is different. The conversation's a little bit, I can't do it as well as he did, but like he ended up excelling really well and he made all of us a lot better because he came onto the team. I would have never been exposed to that if we just hired the same cyborgs over and over again.
That's awesome. That goes back to what we were talking about before. If, you got to know your buyer. So you
Yeah.
bring in like a diverse back. Someone's going to maybe know the cultural differences of that buyer.
Yeah,
But if you got all these,
he lived in Puerto Rico, but he was from Brazil. So like he had like a hybrid of like kind of like he knew the Portuguese Latin America market a lot. And he also could speak Spanish too, which was really impressive. Like so he knew three languages.
yeah, yeah, great stuff.
So the leadership front, we're going back and talking about like we're asking about developing people, and you're like, yeah, you see if you like helping people. Um, Individual contributors that excel at sales but aren't good at leadership. What are usually the trends there that you see? Like that would be like, oh, they should keep selling and not move into management. Besides them wanting to and liking it, like there's also a chance of effectiveness. Like what like excluding the other part of the question, uh, what are things that like, yeah, you might like helping others, but are you actually good at it? like what are some things that you could like help someone self-identify? Like, oh yeah, this person might be your best rep, but they're not going to actually be like, they might not be a good manager, or director, or VP or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of those personality traits or trends you can see is, they they love the close, right? They live for the close. Like they just, enjoy that so much. I think that they have a clear process. They're driven to, manage that process. They're very disciplined. There's a lot of repetitive testing, but there's also like creativity and their own strategy they're testing. So you can see them sometimes they go a little rogue. Like you might have a system and they're doing something that you didn't know they're doing in the background, and
Yeah.
they're like, hey, what are you doing, Bob? We need to teach that to other people. And they're maybe they're testing their own things. Like they are running their own business, I guess, is the way to think about it. Someone that's tends to be an individual contributor, top performer. They've built their own systems within your systems. You may not even know about them, and they treat their commission, their targets, like their own business, and they're going to figure it out with or without you, right? That I think is a typical top performer, individual contributor, and you should learn from them, right? They might not want to teach it or share it, so you
Yeah.
have to kind of ask them to. Again, the people that are great, like managers and stuff, are probably actively sharing those things.
I've seen a lot of I think the other thing that happens if you work at a fast growth SaaS company and you bring in someone that's like a really good sales rep to come into management, they can help short term. It looks like they're good because they know the answers to the test. When the reps that go under them know how to like navigate through a deal and do stuff, but eventually that will wear off. Like you need more. You know what I mean? You need someone that motivates and can be a shoulder to cry on if you're dealing with some. I mean, I think sales. I think a lot of the best managers I've had have almost been therapists.
Hmm.
Like that's like not to get like too personal, but like I'll give a shout out to Matt Toy was one of my managers at Dine. Josh Delisle too. I'll give a shout out to. They'd sit down and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And they'd ask me stuff about my personal life, and it helped me get better at selling because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that you care about people. Great managers, I think, are very empathetic and they actually care. When I think about my best managers, is like I think about those people and I'm like, they cared about me, but they also demonstrated it in business decisions. They went to bat. They shielded, you from the leadership pains. They built systems so you could succeed, but they also had those meetings like, hey, it seems like you've been off the last week, what's going on? They take a personal interest, and that's what people want. They want to work for somebody that actually gives a shit about them.
Yeah. And you know what? It even just helps to say that. Hey, I give a shit about you. Listen, I know I just started reporting. Like, I know you're working for me. I just started. If you're a new hire, tell the person that I give a shit about you. I want you to be happy here.
Yeah.
Tom, I got one more question, then we should probably wrap up because I'll talk to you for 3 hours, and we definitely have to do a part two at some point.
Can we talk about graphic sales stories at some point too?
Yeah, I'm about to do that.
Okay.
That's where I was going. You've been putting out these awesome posts on LinkedIn, and they're going to a site too where you tell sales stories, and like there's some really, like the one I saw last week that you did about like in the comic, just to describe it. I don't know if I'm spoiling it. It's not a spoiler because it's like one
No,
page.
no, it's out there. Yeah.
He's got a post where like it's showing like, oh, we need to implement AI, and the person's like typing in like how to use AI in AI. Really funny. Tell people about graphic sales stories.
Yeah. Thanks for asking, Ryan.
You ruined my cool transition. What
So
the
you blew it.
hell?
Yeah. So I'm really excited about this. This is a partnership. I've got a friend, a college roommate, friends for 30 years, and we're both in sales, long time. He started off selling cable door to door, and also he was collecting. He would collect it on people that defaulted on their student loans. Like he's lived it, and now he's a big wig somewhere. But a couple of years ago, we were taking long drives together, and he had this idea like, hey, you know, he asked me, are you going to write a book? You're one of these sales guys that are sales consultants that seem like they have a book. I'm like, I mean, maybe. I don't know if I have anything new to say. And then he said, I have an idea. What if we like told sales stories, in graphic novel, comic book fashion?
Yeah.
I was like, man, I love that, because we would tell stories. We drive together and tell stories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we spent a year writing stories like that you saw, and then we found this illustrator, Eli Stone, who's brilliant. You might know him from illustrating and writing the Tick comic, and he joined us to illustrate these stories, and it's just a blast. I just love doing it because we have all these stories and we have fun. Like the personalities, I think, represent, like, they capture pretty much what our conversations are like, and Peter's personality and mine. Oh, you're
Yeah.
sharing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You like that? How legit is that screen share? That's like the best thing I've ever done.
It's very impressive, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Very difficult to do.
So,
But yeah, this is the one I was talking about before that I saw.
yeah.
Well, go ahead. Sorry, Tom.
No, that's it. So we've been doing it in episodic fashion, right? So we're right. We've got a bunch in the can that we're releasing, and we're just actively developing more stories. A lot of it's for fun. We're going to see where it goes. We hope people like it. It's a new idea, but but I tell you, just talking to Peter and writing these things down and getting them illustrated, it's been a blast. So it's fun.
I'm hoping that I can come up with an episode idea for you guys, like for an issue, like of something that I see all the time.
Please do. Yeah, send them my way. I've a few people that have told me stories over the years. I've reached out to them and say, can I have the rights to this story? And they're like, go ahead and use. But everything you'll see is pretty much they're true stories, most of them too. And there's some outrageous ones you'll see in the fall that'll make you laugh. But
How often are you going to put them out, Tom? Like right now, what's the cadence you think?
we're like every couple of weeks right now.
Yeah.
Every couple of weeks.
Yeah, pretty cool. I think it's such a creative idea of telling stories here because everybody's doing stuff with video already. Marketing teams do infographics and stuff. It's just kind of like, I mean, I could see it where like you could go get like a company to like be like, hey, can we sponsor this and do one every week? And then you could kind of heat the volume up a little bit more in doing it too.
Yeah. Come talk to us if you have. We're definitely up on the spot because it costs money to illustrate these and takes a lot of time and to run the website and things like that. So we would like to make some money on these, and we also have some really creative ideas on how to promote brands. We are sales guys after all, so we've got some fun ways to build it in without without I don't know what the word is, without hurting the essence of the comic or looking like we're selling out too much.
It's funny. I can see the people that you have in them, and I like have met some of them. So like, I'm like, man, if I were in this, I hope you guys would like make me chiseled.
I tell you, Ryan, it's like, it's like I have so much respect for like, writers and artists and Eli, and we've spent a lot of time like, okay, what's that example of that bad sales rep, the CRO. So we've got a whole bunch of characters that'll be recurring, and we're the narrators. So we have a good time narrating these things. But yeah, we
I'm
just
happy to be
like it. Yeah.
I'm happy to be a bad guy. I just draw a mustache on my face. It'd be like, yeah, or douchey LinkedIn influencer guy.
Oh, Ryan. Yes. So man, we got my wheels turning now, Ryan.
Go, Tom. Where can people check that out? Should they check it out on your LinkedIn feed? Because that's where I usually see them. Like, where do you want people to check it out?
Yeah, so you can follow me, or you can on LinkedIn. You can follow Graphic Sales Stories. We have a page on LinkedIn, and we have a website, graphicsalesstories.com. And you know what I would say is go to graphicsalesstories.com and subscribe, because you'll get the next release early. But we've also got some fun little comic treats that we'll be sprinkling in to subscriber only email addresses, names. So yeah, subscribe.
I just did, by the way. So I'm going to get them over email. Everyone else on our front, I'm just going to give you an update about Pitchfire stuff really quick. And then we can wrap up. We are working on acquiring some assets right now so that there'll be way more buyers in the marketplace. If you work in sales and you're listening to this episode, or you're someone that has a sales team, we just released a bunch of metrics last week about response rates on Pitchfire. It's been crazy. It's funny. I was talking with Lauren Bailey the other day, and she's like, you should do math on what your reply rate is on Pitchfire versus a cold email. Average cold email response rate's 0.7%. We did our calculations right now. Average response rate on Pitchfire is 60%. Yeah. So like it's like an 8,000% increase. I don't know if you're listening to this though, and you do anything with B2B, you should have at least a rep going and try a couple pitches, see if you can find people you're selling to.
60. Wow.
60. It's that won't stay. That's going to go down. I don't even want to, I'm afraid to tell people the meeting book rate is 52%. So if you send a pitch to someone, I'm not trying to get you to sell, but like you send a pitch to somebody, 60% of the time they're going to respond to you, and half that time they're going to take a meeting.
Those are some serious numbers there, Ron. You need like a big graphic to go with the
I know. I got to do it. You know what the hard, full transparency for listeners here, the hard part is I got to share numbers that are pro sales, but I don't want to scare buyers away being like, oh crap, I'm going to jump into a bunch of meetings and stuff. So I got to figure out how to balance it. But if you're listening to this, you're a friend of the show, probably if you're listening to our show. So, Tom, thank you for coming on. I should just have you come on every month because you're like one of my favorite people ever. So we'll figure out a way to sneak that in. Everybody else, thanks for listening. Go check out Graphic Sales Stories. You can go there by going to graphicsalesstories.com, and make sure you hit that subscribe button on there and you can see them. And I think I've seen 2. How many do you guys have out right now?
We have 2 out. The next one comes out in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome, Tom. Thank you for being on.
Ryan, always a pleasure. Thank you for